Happy Monday! Hey, I'm Sean. Another episode of Locked On Raptors here for you, and we have a pair of games to talk about. A pair of losses for your Toronto Raptors on Friday to the Cleveland Cavaliers. A heartbreaker by 1 point, a missed buzzer beater for OG Anunoby sends the Raptors' 5-game winning streak down the tubes. And then Pascal Siakam makes his surprise return to the lineup on Sunday against the Brooklyn Nets. Another loss, but as 0-2 weekends go, plenty of positives to take away from this one. We're going to get into all of it with Vivek Jacob on today's show. We also have 2 dudes of the game to give out in the back part of the show, so stick around for that. All coming up on today's episode of Locked On Raptors.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode number 1052 of Locked On Raptors for Monday, November the 8th. I'm your host, Sean Woodley of RaptorsHQ.com. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at WoodleySean. You can find the show at Locked On Raptors. And, of course, you can find the podcast to subscribe to, follow, tell a friend, rate, review, all the stuff that you do to your podcast. You can do that on all of your favorite podcast platforms for absolutely free. And, of course, we are on YouTube, again, for the low price of On the House. So please go subscribe over there. We had a really nice week on the tube last week. So please keep on going over there. Lots of lovely commenters and interaction and all that good stuff. So please continue to join the Locked On Raptors YouTube wave, baby. Thank you, as always, for making this your first listen of the day. All right, on today's show, the Toronto Raptors have lost 2 games in a row, but I'm not so upset about it because some good things happened in both games. Most importantly, the return of the team's best player on Sunday against the Brooklyn Nets. Joining me on today's show to talk about the game against the Cavs on Friday, to talk about the game against the Nets, is a man who was at both of them, right? Yeah, I didn't see you on Friday, but I think you were there. It is Vivek Jacob from Raptors.com. How's it going, pal?
Not bad, not bad. Yeah, a couple of fun games to take in over the weekend. Not the results that the Raptors would have hoped for, but I think, when you look at the game against the Cavs, I think the Raptors will look back on that and say, yeah, there were several things they could have cleaned up to ensure they got the W. And then against the Nets are the Nets, and they're very good. And when
Sometimes
Kevin Durant
James
is balling like that,
go on a heater, yeah.
Yeah, and James Harden closes it out the way he did in the fourth. Was it 16 points? That's just tough to overcome. And, I think we'll get into some of the maybe longer term things that come out of this game. But yeah, I think, overall 6-5 start. And now you've got Pascal Siakam back before a very difficult stretch coming up. That's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, if we had sort of at the start, not to do the whole we had told you at the start of the season thing, but if you had told us at the start of the season that they were going to go 6-5 in their first 11 games and Pascal Siakam was going to play in one of them, you would have said, that's ahead of schedule. Oh my God, ahead of schedule on both fronts, between the wins being banked and Siakam coming back. So there's really nothing negative to take out of this start. Obviously, some things you would have liked to have cleaned up. Obviously, you wish Jarrett Allen didn't hit 30-foot bank shot threes after one of the better OG Anunoby defensive possessions you'll ever see. It's what happens. It was kind of a weird, bad luck game on Friday. Yes, the offense got real sticky in the second half. And honestly, my recap was kind of about how, man, they could have used Pascal Siakam to sort of get this thing rolling. And then lo and behold, he's back 2 days later, which is really, really great. Before we get into sort of diving into our takes from these games and Pascal's return and all that, I did want to ask you about Friday's game, because I don't know about you, man, but that to me felt like the official return of basketball to Toronto. The crowd was insane. We got a Money City Maniacs with 2 seconds left in the game or 4 seconds left in the game that got my juices flowing. It just felt like, okay, this feels like a regular ass Raptors Friday home game where there's stakes. I know it's just the Cavs, but Evan Mobley's in town. There's the glitz and glam of the Barnes-Mobley matchup and all of that. Did you feel similarly alive watching that game on Friday? Because that was kind of my overarching takeaway from everything was, yeah, they lost, but I don't know how I could feel bad about it on a night that made me feel like I haven't felt in 20 months.
Yeah, no, the fans were great, and it was a fun game to watch. Every time the Raptors seemed to be getting just a little bit of separation or just, holding the Cavs at arm's length, the Cavs seemed to literally, use their arms and get a bunch of rebounds and get right back into it. And so, yeah, that was a great atmosphere for sure. I thought the Magic game was pretty good. And, with I think everyone was excited for Suggs versus Barnes. And obviously, it ended up being a pretty good game in itself. So, I think, as the games progress and fans realize that this team is actually pretty damn good, I think the atmosphere is only going to keep picking up from here.
Yeah, it was just something I wanted to note because it made me feel very warm inside. It was quite nice. I also got to sit next to Kayla Gray on press row. I got the big boy seats this time around, which was nice. And it's never a bad thing to spend 3 hours chatting with Kayla Gray. She's the freaking best. And she's agreed to come on the podcast at some point soon. So I will have her on before she rescinds that offer the way she probably should. But let's get into it, man. I guess sort of overarching takeaways from the weekend at large. Maybe I'll start here. I think for me, Pascal was kind of the through line of both games. As I mentioned, I feel like the times in that third and fourth quarter against the Cavs on Friday where things got a little bit sticky, maybe there was a little bit too much dependence on Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, obviously, shouldering a big load as well. I really felt like, man, it would be nice if Pascal could just like slide into here and offer some, just a little bit of grease for the half court offense's wheels. And he comes back 2 days later. And I think, obviously we didn't see the full scope of Pascal Siakam. He was on the minutes restriction. He didn't close the game and all of that. But, I think you saw some little flourishes of, oh, yeah, he just makes things easier on everybody because he can blow by a guy. He can, be a good target in the pick and roll. He can also spot up around the perimeter. He hit a three. That was really nice to see. We'll have to see if the 3-point percentage is going to come back up for him. But, I think it was a positive start for him all told. What did you think of like the Pascal of it all this weekend, both the lack of him on Friday and, the sort of very clear need for a guy like that, and then how it all kind of transpired as he scored 15 points in his return on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the lack of Pascal, that's kind of been evident pretty much every time the Raptors are running a half court set. So yeah, I've kind of felt that throughout, but this game, just to see him back, see where he's at. And I kind of go back to everything he's been saying before and after games and just where he seems to be in terms of a mental space is the healthiest part of it for me. I think you can see in that post-game presser, he's got no issues talking about whatever. Throw a little jab back at Mike Ganter. And I think he's just having fun.
Gumby had it coming.
And I think he's just having fun with it. And that's the Pascal everyone remembers. And if that's a sign of things to come, I think Pascal is going to be just fine. 15 points in 25 minutes. That's nothing to sneeze at. And you just keep getting better from here. You throw in a couple of bunnies, he's pretty much looking at a 20-point game in 25 minutes.
Yeah, it looked like a couple moments of rust here and there, just kind of finding that touch again. Nothing to be terribly concerned about, I would say. And yeah, just kind of going back to my point on Friday as well with the Cavs. My other sort of prevailing takeaway just regarding Siakam in that game was that I was bummed that he wasn't a part of that night because it was such like a fun, energetic crowd. Like the game just kind of felt, it was like a full display of everything the Raptors are good at in a lot of ways. And then you factor in like OG Anunoby, who I thought on Friday was as good as he's been in that sort of number one role in terms of sort of A, looking for his own shot, and then B, deferring to others when the defense sells out to stop him. I thought it was just like a masterful game from him in a lot of ways. And it just felt like, man, Pascal should be part of this. And I'm really glad that it was not long at all. It felt like it was going to be maybe 2-3 games until he got back in the lineup. Lovely to see him against the Nets on Sunday. And really, there's nothing negative to take away from the way he played. I am curious, though, about how the arrival of Siakam is going to affect the offensive hierarchy a little bit here, because we saw in the game on Sunday, OG takes 16 shots, kind of just around where he's been. He's been a little bit higher than that. 18 shots a game is where he's been at. But we saw Scottie Barnes only take 7 shots in this game, which Nick Nurse has been calling out for Scottie Barnes to take more shots when he's had like 17 or 19 field goal attempt games. Do you think that's just like a single game aberration? Obviously, Barnes was good in a lot of other ways, ripping the ball from Kevin Durant's hands like a baby. He was like all over the place. He had 8, 7. Let me just see here. Yeah, sorry, 14 points. No, I'm looking at the wrong game. 8.7 boards, 4 assists, 5 steals in 31 minutes. But again, just the 4 of 7 from the field. Do you think the arrival of Siakam is going to make it tricky to get Barnes all the touches they want to get him, or do you think it was just like a one-game weirdo, one-off type thing, and they'll find ways to stagger lineups and whatnot to ensure that all their guys are getting their touches?
Well, I mean, I think it'd be impossible to get the exact same usage going forward just because you're going to have to put the ball in Pascal's hands. He's that good. But I do think it will be, in terms of viewing a scale where it kind of hinders Scottie's development. No, I don't think it'll go that far. So sure. I think there's plenty that will happen for Scottie. I think the foul trouble had something to do with his usage and just his overall aggressiveness. And I think that, the Nets did a really good job keeping the Raptors off the offensive glass as well. Yeah. And when you look at this team, coming into the game was averaging about 14 and a half offensive rebounds a game. And they're limited to 8, and Scottie only had the 1. So I think that had something to do with it as well. And then the Nets really cut down on their turnovers in the second half as well. They were pretty sloppy to start the game, and obviously we know how big a part that is of the Raptors game. So I think little things like that probably impact what the usage is going to look like going forward. Because when you look at Siakam's game, I didn't think he really forced anything. There were a couple of times where he tried to go one-on-one, and you can see maybe, the legs aren't quite there yet to blow by someone. You can blow by someone as old as Millsap, sure. But I think, other matchups, it wasn't quite happening, but it wasn't like he just chucked up a shot, right? He just kept the ball moving and tried to screen and tried to be there as a facilitator. And I think that's who Pascal Siakam is going to be going forward.
Speaking of screening, it was nice to see Pascal, good screener, Pascal Siakam, as it turns out, and also surprisingly strong. He threw a couple pretty hard Kem Birch looking screens yesterday. That was just, it stands out because Precious Achiuwa still has yet to hit somebody when he tries to screen somebody. I got a running counter for that all season long. But the last kind of note on that is I agree. I don't think it's going to affect the usage of these guys in any sort of big, enormous way regarding development. I do think it will sort of take down the level of sort of difficulty when they do get their shots. I don't think Scottie Barnes is going to have to self-create all that much because he's got Ho-Chi and Fred and Pascal around him. But I do think he'll get pockets within the game to flex his muscles a little bit because we saw Nick Nurse stagger pretty heavily, pairing up. I think he paired up the Siakam and Fred duo and then the OG and Scottie duo. I think we'll see that pretty regularly. There should be no real reason to have fewer than 2 of those 4 guys on the floor at all times. And I think when they're in those sort of duo, sort of mishmash lineups, that's when they'll get their chances to kind of take the reins. And then, we'll kind of see how it all sort of plays out down the stretch of games. But I think there should be a pretty good harmonious balance between all of these long, limmy dudes who like to dribble and score. It's not a bad thing to have. We're going to continue on here, Vivek. I actually want to talk about the 3-point shooting for the team because it was a real bugaboo for them against the Nets. Not so much against the Cavs. They didn't shoot a ton, but they shot well. But a lot of the guys on the team are shooting well below their career averages. And I kind of want to dig into whether or not that's early season aberration stuff or if there's something about the Raptors and the way they're playing that is causing them to not shoot so hot from downtown. We'll get to that in 1 second here. But first, I want to tell you about Prize Picks. Have you heard about Prize Picks? Well, you have because you've heard me talk about them on this podcast. They're daily fantasy made easy. I love it, and I know you're going to love it too. Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. Prize Picks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. Prize Picks offers any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns to points to rebounds, even interceptions thrown. All of the users that deposit and use a promo code that is locked on. Sorry, it's just NBA. NBA is the promo code. You will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. It's Monday morning. I can't talk. Either way, 100% match of your $100 deposit, meaning you get $200 to play with off the top. That is a wonderful, wonderful deal from Prize Picks. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. There's no experts behind, sort of hiding behind some sort of dark internet secrecy. You are just playing against the projections. That is how it works. Prize Picks allows mixed sport entries. You can take the over on LeBron combined with the under on Mahomes in the same entry if you'd like, and you can use the award-winning app on both the App Store and on Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Prize Picks is safe and offers fast withdrawals as well. So don't hesitate. Check out Prize Picks and use the code NBA to get your apps to go to your app store, or go to your app store and download the app today. Boy, I can't talk. Prize Picks, however, can talk, and they talk daily fantasy in a way that is made easy. So go ahead and give them a shot. Alrighty, let's continue on here, Big V. Actually, we will not continue on here, Big V. We're going to talk about DirecTV Stream first. DirecTV Stream is the way to get your TV together. You know the problem. On Sunday night, you want to watch basketball. You want to watch The Great Canadian Baking Show. You want to watch Succession. You want to watch Only Murders in the Building. Did I just describe what I did on my Sunday? Yes, I did. But guess what? You don't have to do what I did, where I had all these different disparate apps and remotes. You should get smart, unlike me, and get DirecTV Stream, because they're going to get your TV together. They bring your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part is there is no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package, and this is only available to our American listeners. But DirecTV, come and dip your toes up in the Canadian waters, because I want to get a piece of this DirecTV Stream. All right, we continue on here, Vivek. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. And let's talk about three-point shooting, shall we? The Toronto Raptors are not shooting it terribly well from downtown. 33.2% on the season, good for 21st in the NBA. And a lot of the guys on the team individually are shooting below their career standards. Fred VanVleet's at 37% on 7.4 attempts. Not terrible, but still a little bit of a whisper below where he typically has been, around that 40% mark. OG Anunoby at 36%, few percentage points down. Gary Trent Jr., 33.8% on 6.2 attempts. Goran Dragic at 22%, obviously not playing. Precious Achiuwa, 21%. Chris Boucher, 19.4% after last season's pretty promising flashes of being able to shoot down the stretch of the season. It hasn't translated over this year. You've got as well, Malachi Flynn hasn't taken many threes. He's, I believe, 1 of 5 so far on the season, or 2 math. 66.7%. He's 2 of 3. There we go. Math, baby. They're really the only guy shooting above what you would expect, or around what you'd expect, is Fima Hailuk at 41.2%. Delano Banton, low volume, 37.5. So let me ask you, Vivek, are you alarmed by any of these three-point shooting numbers, either the team-wide or any individual players? And is there something about the way the Raptors are playing potentially to incite this not-so-good three-point shooting to begin the season? Or is it early season, 11-game, small sample stuff that you don't have too much worry about?
I think the only one I'd say is alarming is Chris Boucher. I think that's really got to pick up. And you'd like to think it will. I mean, I'd be shocked if he finished at, sub 20% for the season. That would be horrendous. But I think, when I look at OG Anunoby, you expect a bit of a drop off because he's taking tougher threes. He's taking them off the dribble. He's, so you expect that a little bit.
He's also taking 8 a game.
Yeah. So I think he's close enough where, 36, maybe that hikes up to 37. That's fine. I'm not too worried about that. And guess what? He's going to take some easier threes now with Pascal around.
Yeah.
And that applies to Fred, and that applies to Gary Trent Jr. I think Gary Trent Jr. might be the biggest benefactor out of it. But I think even the last couple of games, we've seen Fred take some relocation threes. They're basically just less threes off the dribble. And I think that's going to help him. As far as a weakness, I think you have to look at the half-court offense. How could you not? Yeah. I mean, then that's something that's going to be an issue for them all season. And, you can kind of, one of the trademark plays of the half court has kind of been the shot clock winding down and Fred having to heave from 30 feet, right? We can all see that. So I think that's something that they've got to get away from a little bit, but hopefully Siakam coming back, loosens the offense a little bit and makes things run a bit smoother and opens up some shots. But other than that, I'm not too worried about the 3-point shooting going forward, just relatively speaking, because guess what? You're putting Pascal Siakam into the rotation. That's less minutes for Precious Achiuwa, who isn't spacing the floor. That's less minutes for Chris Boucher, who right now is absolutely not spacing the floor. And so, yeah, I think the team should improve going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. And I do think there's probably something to the sort of burden that's being placed on the shooters the Raptors have when they are on the floor. Like, they're going to be seeing more attention, right? Because usually there's only like 3 good shooters on the floor. They've been playing that spread lineup a little bit where it's been Fred. This was before Pascal got back, obviously. And I think it was when Scottie was hurt. But Fred, Svi, Trent, OG, and Birch, like, that's a pretty easy thing to just like run spread pick and roll with. And you got 4 shooters out there, and that's great. But when you only have 3 shooters in OG, Trent, and Van Vliet, and then Pascal's kind of a TBD right now because we're not really sure where he's going to settle back to after last season, like that creates that much more duress for Trent, Fred, and OG when they are putting those threes up. Not to mention that like a lot of them are pull-ups in the case of OG and Fred, but it's just like there's more attention, there's less help coming off of them, just because why would you help off of those 3 guys when the non-shooters are out spacing and not offering space, and you don't really worry about them, right? And so I wonder if sort of the effect of those guys all being like career 40%-ish dead-eye shooters, I wonder if the effect of just not having extra guys out there to kind of take the burden off of them makes their looks that much more difficult. That's kind of one theory I would posit here. And obviously Pascal coming back is going to help things. Even if Pascal doesn't shoot 36% from 3, he just gets into the teeth of the defense a lot better. He demands more help. Defense flies his way, and that's going to open things up, especially considering he's a very, very good passer, maybe the best on the team. It's either him or Fred, I would say. So there's that. And then I guess the other sort of thing I'm curious about is we know how hard they play on defense, right? And how they fly around and they are constantly expending max energy in a lot of ways to make it so their offense is easier on themselves because they force turnovers and force misses that they run off of. But when they have all that energy go into defensive possessions that ends up in a bucket for the other team, they're having to run the half-court offense. Do you think there is anything to the idea that they're expending too much energy on defense and not having enough to run reliable offense and have the legs in them when they put up those threes? I'm not saying this is what I believe. It's just a little theory I'm cooking up. I'm curious what you think.
I frankly, I would throw the offense in there as well, because I think the mental strain of every time you're in a half court set, you're going to 20-24 seconds, just trying to create some way through. That's exhausting too. And so when you're having to work that hard, it can take a bit of a toll. I think on a back-to-back on the regular, you're going to see teams sort of break down. But I think the Raptors are more susceptible to that because of their playing style. Right. And so you might see more back-to-backs, and we saw it last season. We didn't see it before that. But the Raptors haven't been this aggressive before either.
Yeah.
And so I think, especially, with that theory on a back-to-back, you would definitely see that play in. And I do think the one saving grace for the Raptors is the way the game is being called this season.
Yeah.
I think the Raptors would have a completely inadequate offense if it was still being played the way it was last season.
Sure.
And I think that kind of factored into our expectations coming into this year. And now you see the way the game is being called. You see, what an average offense is in terms of points per possessions. It's down by almost 5 points. Yeah. And that helps the Raptors. So, if you don't have to generate as much offense and you have a defense that can keep you in games, it gives you a better chance of survival. And I think that's been, one of the underrated factors that benefit the Raptors.
Yeah, it's definitely worth noting that as much as we talk about the Raptors offense as this laborious, hard to sort of create machine that's all creaky and needs oil, they're 13th in offense right now at 107.9 points per 100 possessions. Not terrible. Obviously, I guess you could look at it two ways. One, maybe they see some regression there in terms of just like they fall back to where we expected them to be on true talent, or also they are 13th with having Pascal in the lineup for one game, and most of their guys are shooting below their career averages on threes. Maybe that suggests good things are in the future for the Raptors offense. It's just, again, it's just a working theory that the aggressiveness and the energy expended makes it difficult to shoot threes, but we'll keep an eye on it because, hey, this could very well snap back, but maybe it doesn't, and it's a thing we're talking about all season long. You can just say that you heard it here first on Locked On Raptors if ever you want to bring up this conversation later on in the year.
One quick thing I want to throw in there. I know as an overall offense, the Raptors are doing okay, but they are still 25th per cleaning the glass in half-court offense.
Yeah,
right?
And that adjusts for garbage time and stuff too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is definitely an issue.
Yeah. I mean, they're really fun in transition. They should do more of the thing where Delano Banton dumps it off to Pascal Siakam on the run and they dunk it. That would be cool. But we will continue on. Maybe Delano Banton will come up in the next segment as we have two dudes of the game to hand out after the two games over the weekend. It's the segment everybody's talking about. Everybody loves the dude of the game, and we got two of them to hand out, and then we'll get to that in just 1 second here. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar, who are making the best tasting protein bars you can find, and it's Thanksgiving season, which means it's Built Bar season, baby. I love Thanksgiving, all the good food and the treats. All of them are so wonderful. But sometimes after eating all of the heavy stuff, the savory meal portions, I don't really feel like a full-on dessert. Sometimes you got to have it, but more often than not, I'm like, you know what? I could have something else and be totally satiated, but for my sweet tooth. And guess what? Built Bar is here, and it is the new perfect holiday dessert for just that situation you might find yourself in. You can feast on something delicious and feel good about it after not feeling so good about all the stuff you ate earlier in the day. One slice of pie is upwards of 300 calories, and that's on the low end. Most Built Bars, however, only 130 calories with just 4 grams of sugar and plenty of protein. So you can replace the coconut cream pie with a coconut Built Bar, raspberry Built Bar instead of that raspberry pie. Basically, if there's a pie, there's a Built Bar corollary that you can have. It's low calorie, low carb, low fat, and high protein, covered in 100% real chocolate. Built is great for whenever you're hungry. If Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, you can go for a Built Bar or two now. It doesn't matter. Share some of your family gatherings. Just bring a bucket and toss them out to your aunts and uncles and grandparents and see if they like them as well. They just might have a new favorite dessert. Maybe it's Built Bars for post-Thanksgiving dessert for the rest of time. Who's to say? Also, new surprises are available all month long as the seasonal flavors start kicking up into high gear over at Built.com. So be sure you're checking the site regularly. There's nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday as well. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. So go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That is the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Alrighty, Big V. It is time for two dudes of the game. Again, the segment that the whole world is clamoring for. We should just refresh, I suppose, what the dude of the game is. Oftentimes, we'll record a podcast, and through the first couple segments, we end up not talking about a guy who was essential to the game that was just played that we're talking about. And so we have the dude of the game, a segment that is created to talk about this guy who deserves some love. We have two to give away today from the Friday and Saturday games. Sunday games. I picked the Friday due to the game. I've deferred it to Vivek to pick Sundays due to the game. I guess we can start with Friday because chronology makes sense in the brain. My due to the game, Vivek, for Friday is Malachi Flynn, baby. He did not play a ton, but when he was on the floor, I thought he was really effective. He played 7 minutes. He had 5 points. He had 3 steals and an assist. Hit 1 3, and his big play came down the stretch where he snuck in after Scottie Barnes was kind of dealing with the trees that are Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. Missed a couple shots. Jarrett Allen got the defensive board off of one of the Barnes misses. Malachi Flynn just sneaks in, smacks the ball away right into the hands of Scottie. Scottie goes up for the dunk. The whole arena goes crazy, and I was surprised that Malachi Flynn didn't play at all in the Sunday game after putting in such a solid performance on Friday. And, Nick Nurse even said that he liked the way he played. I was in the press conference where he talked about it. He talked about how, hey, he can kind of get us a shot when we need it and that type of thing. Was surprised we didn't see him on Sunday. But what were your thoughts on your dude of the game, Malachi Flynn, from Friday against the Cavs, Big B?
Yeah, I love the way he played, especially, to close out that first half. I thought he had a really good stretch where he had the floater, the three, and I forget the assist. I think he had the hit ahead to Scottie. And, he was kind of mixed up in there in terms of forcing the turnover and then getting it out to Scottie. And then that leads to a dunk. But yeah, I think, at some point, especially once the 905 season gets going, they're going to have to figure out, is he going to get playing time with the Raptors, or does he need to go down and just get playing time that way? And if it's not him, then it's Delano. It's going to be tough to keep Delano out right now, but I could see things sort of becoming a 50-50 between them, and they both kind of take turns going back and forth, and Patrick Mutombo has at least one of them to work with.
Yeah, I mean, if I had it my way right now, and look, my feelings on the rotation change with the wind, but because there's a lot of dudes on this team who managed to show out in various moments. But honestly, right now, with the way Banton's playing and the way Flynn has played the last few times he's gotten in there, and the way Chris Boucher in particular is playing or not playing, whatever you want to size up what he's been doing, I don't hate the idea of just kind of excising Boucher from the rotation and having Banton kind of be like a point forward type in those reserve units, and just having Malachi Flynn be your backup point guard. As much as Banton has been really impressive, I like him a lot. I feel like maybe his skill set's a little bit better used right now because he's not much of a spacer, as sort of like a cutting four who can also handle the ball a little bit, kind of like early stage Pascal Siakam in a lot of ways, like that year, his second season with the bench mob. I could kind of see that being a bit of a role there for Banton, and then you get Flynn and Banton both in, and I think they're both in my top 9 in terms of guys I trust right now on the roster. And so I would like to see that. I don't know if we will see that. Boucher obviously has some equity with the franchise built up. I feel like he's going to get some rope here. He also is 6'9", therefore he stands a chance of being in the rotation because that's what the Raptors like. But
they might be looking to build up that trade equity too.
That's also very true because it's becoming pretty clear to me that he is not necessarily part of the long-term plans here. But, we'll keep an eye on that one for sure. But, yeah, move Banton down, slide him up, take some of those minutes from the front court on the bench. Maybe it's some Precious Achiuwa minutes as well, and then get Flynn in there as your backup point guard because I liked the way he's kind of pushed the pace. He's kind of a different dynamic to the second unit. He brings similar sort of elements that Banton does. Banton's in there because Nick Nurse likes how he pushes the pace. Flynn's done that as well, and why not have both on the floor, I say. But we shall see what happens there. Let's go to the dude of the game, number 2 from the game against the Brooklyn Nets. Who you got as your dude of the game, Vivek?
It's the dude we've been talking about, Delano Banton, the birthday boy.
Woo! I predicted it. I wrote the graphic before, assuming you'd pick him. I was right. I feel great. Go into why Delano Banton was your dude of the game against the Nets.
I thought he just came in and did what he's been doing all season. And, there was that stretch where the Raptors were just looking for some energy. Especially later on in the game, third quarter kind of fell flat. And he comes in and all of a sudden, the Raptors are able to, I believe, cut it back down into single digits at least. And I thought he was a part of that. And, even when he came in early, he gets involved right away. And I think actually the first half is probably a better reflection of what you've been talking about, where maybe he wasn't handling it as much. Yeah. But was mixing it up on the glass and really just trying to provide a spark. And, if he's that secondary ball handler where it's like, hey, if you get the rebound, just get out and go. If not, we've got sort of a traditional point guard in there. And, you can sort of work off that. So I think that first half was probably a better reflection of what you've been talking about. And then, we see later on what he's been doing all season. And yeah, happy birthday to Delano.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Shout out to 45 doing their thing with wishing him as well. That was pretty neat. And yeah, it's fun to watch him, man. He's really fun to watch. And I think again, similar to Scottie, that middle area of the floor, the way they operate in there kind of takes your breath away.
Yeah, the sort of like dexterity at that height in close quarters is crazy. The floater game is really impressive so far. I'm stunned by how good Delano Banton's looked based on like the college footage you saw of him, where he's kind of this like plodding, slow dude, like just completely has kicked it into high gear on the sort of recommendation of the coaching staff. And he was just like, okay, I'll go faster then. You say go faster, I will. And it's worked out really wonderfully. I think it's going to be really difficult to send him to the 905 at any point this season, considering how well he's played, how much Nick Nurse seems to love him, and how much he kind of checks all the boxes that the Raptors are looking for with the guys who are going to play for them. What with the being 6'9" and being good at defense and having the ball handling chops and all that. So you're now leader in due to the game award wins is Delano Banton with 2 on the season. So congrats to Delano for that. Let's see more of it. He's an absolute delight to watch, and a happy belated birthday to him as well. That's going to do it for today's episode of the show. Big V, thank you so much for being here. As always, it's wonderful to chat with you after a big, fun weekend of games. Losses be damned. It's about the friends we made along the way, I guess. But either way, anything that you would like to promote before we get out of here?
No, just the usual stuff. You can find my work on Raptors.com, CBC Sports, and you can follow me on Twitter at Vivek Jacob.
Excellent. You can find me, of course, at Woodley Sean. Subscribe to, rate, review, all that good stuff. Writing some blogs over at RaptorsHQ.com. Basketball is my other podcast with Katie Heindel. We have a Patreon page if you want to go support that. It's a fun, weird, sort of different take on the NBA. And that will do it. Coming up on tomorrow's show, we'll be joined by John Corrales, one of my faves on the Locked On Network from Locked On Celtics. We will look ahead to the Raptors-Celtics game on Wednesday. And then I know Katie Heindel is going to pop by twice this week, figuring out the days for that, but she'll be here twice. That'll be exciting as well. And there's 2 games coming up Wednesday, Thursday in Boston and Philly. A couple of big tests for the Raptors before they gear up to go on the road. I think they have 1 home game left in the next 10 games or something like that. And they've got a long, long road trip coming up. And we'll check in with some of our fun Western Conference pals as they head out west. I'm sure Mike Richmond from Locked On Blazers will be on at some point because we love Mike Richmond over here. Either way, thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Go make your second listen of the day. Locked On Fantasy Basketball, as Josh Lloyd has given you all the intel you need to win your fantasy basketball leagues. So go check it over there as you get DFS and season-long insight and input from one of the best in the business in fantasy basketball. And we will talk to you again on Tuesday with another episode of Locked On Raptors. Bye-bye.